What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Jimin's second solo album, Muse. Of course, Jimin, 1/7 of BTS. BTS, of course, on hiatus, as we know right now. This second Jimin solo album was recorded and produced and created entirely before Jimin went on military enlistment back in December. Much like RM's recent album from just a few weeks ago, it seems that Big Hit and all the BTS boys saved a lot more to satiate the fans while they were away. It's pretty interesting. BTS hasn't really felt like they've been away just because they kind of staggered all these solo albums coming out and then even made more of them to release in 2024. So I guess at this point we should probably expect some more albums to come out, right? I mean, Jin's already back. J-Hope's back in the fall. It feels like we're going to get a lot of solo stuff to conclude 2024 and early 25. And the next thing we know, the group will be reunited and making assumingly fresh new music again. So it's a pretty good time to be a BTS fan. And I think Jimin, of course, the first solo album certainly intrigued last year because Jimin's always stood out as a vocalist on BTS due to his, kind of unique high register. He's always noticeable on a song whenever you hear his vocals. And what I liked a lot about that debut album, Face, from him was that Jimin was dabbling in some newer sounds for him, some darker music, definitely some stuff we haven't really heard him do before, even though he hadn't really released much solo music. It just felt a little bit out of his normal purview as a member of BTS, even dabbling with a little bit of hip hop as well, certainly nothing he had done before. Jimin's second solo album, Muse, is to me in stark contrast from the last album, Face, because Muse doesn't really come across as Jimin doing anything that new, that out of his normal mode. It's still quite lively, largely R&B and largely romantic leaning in terms of its lyrical message and whatnot, but it doesn't really dabble in too many outside genres. I guess we could point to the Sgt. Pepper's Beatles iconography comparisons in terms of the visuals regarding this album. On the song Be Mine, I feel like I was getting a bit of a mariachi vibe with the strings. There's definitely some movie soundtrack, carnival, marching band vibe a little bit on this too earlier in the track list, but largely it's Jimin doing more Jimin stuff. This doesn't feel as interesting as an album as the last one. I guess that's okay in the sense that this is really just released to satiate the fans as they wait for him to return from his military service. On the other hand, it does come across as just music that didn't really make the first album. That's not how RM's recent album sounded. That was very much a artistic vision. Like, I'm not really sensing that as much with this album from Jimin. That being said, for what it is, I think it's completely fine, completely listenable, and again, will certainly satiate the fans. Unsurprisingly, this is quite short like the last album, 7 songs, 20 minutes, but one of those is an interlude, one of those is an intro, one of those is a single that came out months ago, the closer song. Anyway, I think it's all pretty solid. Rebirth intro was a lot livelier than I expected. I actually thought Jimin's vocals were really awesome on this intro song. Some fun call and response moments. The bass dropping in a smooth way. Definitely the movie soundtrack vibes are on that song. And then we lean into the Sgt. Pepper aesthetic with interlude Showtime, old-timey carnival horns. Then the marching band shows up. And then, of course, that leads us into the song Smeraldo Garden Marching Band featuring Loco. And of course, the marching band tempo continues with those drums. And the Loco feature actually, perhaps a bit random out of nowhere, but it fits the song, specifically the drum tempo, quite well, I think. Slow Dance, despite its name, actually quite upbeat, surprisingly. I enjoyed Jimin's vocals a lot on this, very smooth. Be Mine, that's where the mariachi strings, at least that's the vibe I got. I don't know if it's strictly that, but definitely different from the other songs and quite catchy, I would say. Then we have the big single Who, where it's definitely a maximalist Jimin song, a bit more auto-tune on this one. The Who's My Heart Waiting For refrain, specifically, very sticky, very catchy. Is this like anything flashy about this as a big K-pop single? No, not really, but Jimin's vocals are always really nice to listen to, auto-tune or not. So for what it is, it's still pretty solid, And then Closer Than This, which had already been released, pretty bouncy, honestly, for one of those like fan love letter type songs. Enjoyed the keys, I enjoyed the bass. Ultimately, is any song off Muse as good as Like Crazy? from the last album, or even Set Me Free Part 2. I don't think so. That's okay. I did chuckle that Jimin performed, I believe it was Who, on Jimmy Kimmel. Obviously, that was just released, but he recorded that when he did Jimmy Kimmel the first time around last year, and they kept that secret, kept that in the vault until now. Big hit, really planning. At this rate, though, I'll be curious if we get another album from V this year. I think that one's probably the most likely. Jungkook, I'm not sure, just because obviously he was so successful last year, and he was able to promote all of that because he went to enlistment last. So would they have Jungkook put out more music again when he's not able to capitalize it in physically? I'm not sure. Maybe they'll save a lot of that stuff. On the other hand, the group has to reunite when they return. So who knows? Obviously there's so many big hits off that album from his, and he really has crossed over into the Western market like no K-pop artist ever has before. Maybe keep the momentum going even if he's not physically here. I'm not sure. And J-Hope, he'll be back in the fall. Maybe he'll release at the end of the year. I don't know. But we're definitely going to get more. It's just a question of who it's from. Can't rule out Suga either. And Jin will, I think, just be recording an album now. So anyway, BTS, they're never really gone. But let me know, what did you think of Jimin's second album, Muse? What was your favorite song on it? And for more K-pop reviews, more music reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time.